So I hope you are remembering at least a few things that we discussed yesterday. It was a long session and we discussed many concepts which may be very new to all of you. So we'll build up on what we discussed yesterday and continue our discussion. There was one exercise that we could not complete uh, as we ran out of time, and that is, a rapid assessment of your physical constitution or prakriti. As I was mentioning, in Ayurveda, the first step is like, you know, seeing yourself in the mirror. So Ayurveda is like a mirror. First of all, it tells you to look at yourself and understand who you are. And we discussed yesterday about the so many masks that we are wearing, which are inevitable. We wear so many masks in our day-to-day life without which we cannot, survive and transact. But the problem is when we get too identified with the masks. So once in a while, we need to have some time for ourselves, disconnect from the whole world, remove all these masks, and look at who we are. Being aware of the person behind the mask is one of the major procedures for getting into higher states of health. So that will help you to manage your day-to-day activities with. We know today one of the major causes of ill health is stress. Stress damages our metabolism, it damages our immune system. Okay, we need to do an adjustment. We need an appointment with ourselves every day. So it is a good practice. Ayurvedic texts say that at the end of the day, you must sit quietly, remove all the masks that you wore during the daytime, and then have an appointment with yourself. See yourself as you are. And this is through the process of understanding your prakriti that you go back to yourself. And this going back to yourself is a practice for health. This is why the term in Sanskrit for health is swastha, one who stays deep inside, one who stays with his own real self, not identifying with all the masks and situations that you are trapped in. But that doesn't mean that you should not wear masks. You will have to put on so many identities for you to engage in your day-to-day transactions. Is that clear? So, what we are, the masks that we wear are created by conditioning. That's why yesterday I told about a story about a guru asking a shishya, who are you? And then finally, telling him that, you are not a person. All the definitions the disciple gives to the teacher is based on external circumstances. So the teacher finally enables the student to go beyond a relative conditioned understanding of his self to a more deeper absolute understanding. So we also looked at Prakriti yesterday. What we are, how we get defined from the outside is influenced by genetic factors, epigenetic factors, your own individual factors, the way your physical body is constituted, the way your mind gets exposed in your childhood and in your growth phase, the community which you are born, your ethnicity, all these things shape you. So one of the key factors that and we also discussed that there are factors which make us, similar to each other in many regards. And there are certain factors that make us unique from everybody else. So that is why in Ayurveda, the treatment, if you say absolute personalization, that is wrong. And absolute generalization is also wrong. We have to work somewhere in between. Because certain medications will work across populations also, because there are many similarities between individuals. But certain medicines will work only on specific individuals because there are differences between individuals. Today, modern medicine is also beginning to realize that painkillers, for example, there was a professor at the Johns Hopkins School Medicine who once came to our institute where I was working in Coimbatore, and he was telling how difficult it is for a pain medicine specialist to actually decide what dosage of anesthesia or pain medicine should be given to a particular patient. Because these medications, if you overdose, it will lead to very severe consequences. So the success of pain medication and anesthesia rests on optimizing the effective dose, reducing toxicity as much as possible. And this is so challenging because pain threshold for each individual is different. Suppose five of us are experiencing pain. Objectively, we can say it is of the same intensity, but the subjective experience is extremely varied. One person with the slightest pain will find it very uncomfortable. Some others, it's severe pain they can tolerate. In the Mahabharata, there is a story of a character who tolerates unbearable pain. Who is that? Karna. So, and that was considered as a Kshatriya quality. So, we divided it on the basis of the Trigunas. So, even today, that fact is true. So, this doctor was interested in Prakriti because he was having this hypothetical assumption that probably pain threshold or pain tolerance is influenced by Prakriti. Now, Ayurvedically, this is plausible because according to Ayurveda, if you are a Vata constitution, your pain tolerance will be very low. If you are a Kapha constitution person, your pain tolerance will be generally high. Pitta people are also sensitive to pain. They are especially more sensitive to heat or burning type of pain. So you can see some people are very heat intolerant, some others like the heat, some people like cold, some people do not tolerate cold. So all these differences are there. I hope we have noticed all that, right? So it is very difficult to adjust the air conditioner in a room where there is a big crowd. You can see this repeatedly happening in airplanes, in trains, where few passengers complain that it is so cold. And when they adjust it, the others will say, now it has become too hot. So Ayurveda has looked at all these variations and has posited that there is a biological basis for this variability. And if you carefully analyze it, what I'm going to do, give you today, because this is only an introductory course, just giving you a glimpse of some frameworks that Ayurveda uses. If you want to go deep, you will need to explore it in a more detailed way. Is an introduction to how Ayurveda understands these variabilities and how it gives us a framework to assess it and then take decisions based on. So, your lifestyle, your diet, your medication, the way you handle your mind, all this can be optimized if you understand your purpose. So, as I told you, the textbooks describe 200 plus characters associated with Prakriti. Now, you can imagine if one of you, if I want to do a full Prakriti analysis now, it would take hours, maybe days. Usually, Ayurvedic physicians complete their Prakriti assessment over multiple consultations. Or you need to know very deep, you should have deep knowledge of Nadi. Today, there are scientific studies happening in this field trying to see if there are some genetic markers, biochemical correlates, or some physiological markers which will enable you to identify Prakriti more objectively. So, some studies are encouraging, like, for example, a study found that platelet agglutination, you know, it is variable in people. So Pitta persons are having a particular pattern of platelet agglutination. Similarly, certain genes are overexpressed in Vata constitution. So we are still in the preliminary phase of identifying Prakriti in an objective manner. So what we are having here is a phenotypical identification based on how you express your life, your certain characters. We'll get some clues on what could be your Prakriti. So, for example, if you are a Vata Kapha person, you will be more comfortable, your body will be more comfortable, and if you drink always warm water. Have you noticed some people like to have hot or warm water? Some others would like to drink cold water. So, if you are a Pitta constitution or a Pitta Vata constitution, then use. So you cannot say that cold water is bad or hot water is bad. It depends on your constitution and what will work more for you. Intuitively, we all do this. Intuitively, we ultimately adjust to what is more comfortable for us. But if you know the prakriti or constitution, you can take a more intelligent decision. So these 9 factors, I am using this in my clinic. So it is something which I have privately developed because I cannot do 200 questions and patients will run away. So in 5-10 minutes, very quickly, I should be able to get at least an approximate idea of what that person's prakriti is, and then over subsequent consultations I can confirm, depending on their response and all. So these are 9 parameters, psychophysical parameters, which are very helpful to get a rough idea of what your prakriti is. So now few things are there. Everything starts from the gut in Ayurveda. Today we are saying that the gut is connected to all. It's not without reason that when we are in the womb, we are connected to the mother through the navel region. So that is the source of life. In Ayurveda, pranic energy is centered around the Nabhi. And today we are understanding that gut is also a nervous system in itself. It's called now as a gut brain. And this whole idea of gut feeling and all that has some, basis. And today we are talking about the gut brain axis. Now, it looks like the gut is having an access to many, many organs of the body. There is a gut heart axis, gut lung axis, gut skin axis, gut eye axis. So, modern science, after having studied our body individually, different parts, and now they're beginning to see connections and correlations, which was what Ayurveda had always talked about. So, we said everything, gut is the axis, the base. So, when you correct your gut, all the functions and systems begin to get stabilized. And I'm sure you have heard modern science has discovered something fascinating, that our gut is home to millions and millions of bacteria and other microorganisms. So much so that, according to one estimate, we are just a collection of bacteria, because the bacteria and the microbes in our body outnumber our cells. So, by a ratio of maybe 1:10, that was what people estimated. Now they have revised that estimate because it's still a science, in development. Maybe it is equal, but even then, it is quite an amazing thing that we are enveloped in microbes. And we are thinking that with all this sanitation and all that, we can be rid of microbes, but we are living because of microbes. And this microbial balance, and here I want to tell you that Charaka Samhita was one of the earliest medical textbooks to anticipate or what you can say, uh, sense this presence of microbes in our own system. They call this as sahaja krimis and vaikarika krimis. So krimi is a term, today we use it for a worm, but in Ayurveda it is kramupada vikshepe, or things that move by elongating themselves. So unicellular organisms, they used it for all kinds of parasitical, pathogenic organisms, pathogenic and non-pathogenic. So when Charaka Samhita discusses about these microbes, it talks about sahaja and vaikarika. Sahaja means innate, harmless, and vaikarika means that which creates vikara or disease. So pathogenic organisms and non-pathogenic, and the sahaja krimis are supposed to be in your body always. So you cannot completely make your system sterile. In fact, if you make your system sterile, you will be destroyed. So it is a balance between vaikarika and sahaja krimis. So for that, your gut is extremely important. Today we know diseases like Parkinson's begin with gut microbiome dysbiosis. It's called as dysbiosis. So what happens is they did a study when they took the microbiota of Parkinson's patients and put it into rats, they developed Parkinson's like symptoms. There is a protein called alpha synuclein which misfolds and it is in the gut. And they found that it actually, through our vagus nerve, it goes to the brain and then damages the brain, leading to Parkinson's. So the origin of Parkinson's is now considered to be from the gut. Yes. Packets of prebiotics and probiotics. So what I have seen is the field of microbiome is still in a very nebulous phase of development. So unfortunately, what is happening is, in the name of prebiotics and probiotics, a lot of unscientific things are being sold even by modern companies. So you have to be very, very careful. See, the problem to study the gut microbiome is, today what we do is we take a sample of our fecus, the stools, and then check for microbiome. But that will not give, only the bacteria that get excreted through the our stools or fecus will be available there. If you really want to do a microbiome study, you have to use invasive methods. You will have to do endoscopy, because the whole colon you have to sample, and that is very invasive. It is not possible. So, and there is so much of variability in microbiome. Diet completely modifies our microbiome. And so today people are only beginning to understand what microbiome is. What do we actually, so some things like, we know that curds, buttermilk, these things are having pre-probiotic kind of components, and it is good for the gut. And this is why in our tradition we have been using this for such a long time. I mean, we knew that it was good for the gut health. And it has something to do with like lactobacillus bacteria and all those things, can normalize the gut microbiome. So, but we have to be very careful about what is peddled in the name of microbiome studies. It will take, I discuss with a lot of experts, because I was trying to see if prakriti we can correlate with some gut microbiome signatures. So the experts in the field said to please wait, don't correlate yet, because microbiome science is also changing. So today you will find one signature and tomorrow it will be different. It is still, so before drawing conclusions, we have to be very, very careful. But having said that, a lot of, you having fiber, for example, is good for your gut microbiome. Taking curds is good for you, and buttermilk is good for your gut microbiome. So those things are quite well established, but we still do not know in greater detail about how to balance this. There are now horror stories of people taking prebiotics and getting severe stomach upset and problems also. So if you already have a healthy microbiome, it is not of any use that you keep, taking more of such bacteria. So I would exercise some caution in this area. So we'll go a little quickly now. We have many things to cover. The nature of the bowel, hunger tolerance, temperature tolerance, weight gain, loss pattern, how your skin responds to the environment, stress, how you respond to stress, speech characteristics, how your intelligence works, and resource management. These are 9 parameters which you can quickly assess to get a rough idea about what your Prakriti expression is. No, Prakriti will not change. The physical constitution, it's like your genetic makeup. It's like your genetic makeup. So, but the thing is, you can manage it, which means that you can compensate for all these features by adjusting your diet and lifestyle, but that tendency will be there. So, Prakriti remains as a tendency, but we can prevent it from expressing. It is just like, you have some genes in your body which are likely to cause a particular disease, but all these genes does not have to express. You can prevent them from expressing through epigenetic modulation. So Prakriti can greatly be, so in Ayurveda what we say is, Shikshita Prakriti and Ashikshita Prakriti. Two categories are there. So when in a clinic also what you look at is whether that is a tamed Prakriti or an untamed Prakriti. If you are an untamed Prakriti, you will express wildly all the Prakriti characteristics. If you have tamed your Prakriti, it is very difficult to identify your Prakriti because everything is, under control. So I'll explain that a little bit. So now the first thing is the nature of the bowel. There are three major tendencies. They can come in combination. So one is some people are by nature constipated. It doesn't depend on the food. So you have to rule out certain things that anybody may get constipation or flatulence because of some influences. So you must always ask whether there is a reason for your getting constipated. Maybe you were too dehydrated the previous day, or you had very little food, or there was a travel. Everybody experiences this. So in spite of any such reason, if you have a tendency to have, so sometimes it may be constipated or sometimes very loose. So this type of people, their bowel is a big headache for them. They can never be at peace because they are always aware of their bowel. This is an extreme expression. And then there are certain others who have frequently loose bowels and they easily get acidity. If they eat a little spice, they cannot tolerate it. If they have any chilies or something, their mouth will begin to burn. And when they are little tensed or very frequently, they would want to visit the restroom. Some people are. If they even take milk, they may get a loose bowels. So there is a theory that these are the people who have what you call as lactose intolerance. So that's described in Ayurveda. And then we have the third category. Their bowels are fairly normal, but these come in various combinations. So many patterns can actually be identified. So if you want to pinpoint your dosha, you will need to have more interrogation with the patient. Today, actually, there is a chart. It is not a nice chart to show. It's called the Bristol stool chart, which you use actually to very quickly in the clinic identify. And actually, the Bristol stool chart enables you to quickly understand what dosha is dominating in your system. So, although it is not a convenient or pleasurable thing to do, Ayurveda says that one of the ways to check your health is to look at what is going out of the body, because that is an index to how your metabolism is functioning. So some of the early signs of ill health disease can be understood by looking at your excretory pattern, because it reflects how your gut is functioning. So now this is Vata. Vata people are like this. This is Pitta and this is Kapha. So you have, when you look at this, if you have a combination, then you are a combination of the two doshas. If you are a combination, then with certain foods, you will sometimes have a tendency for hard bowels, or sometimes, so they are a Vata Pitta constitution. A Vata Kapha constitution will have a mixed pattern. So it's all about looking at patterns. So just by one or two instances, you cannot make a judgment. Yes. Would you like to? No. So the next thing is hunger. So hunger is everybody will have, but how well you tolerate hunger is the question. Some people can tolerate hunger for a long time, and they are what we call as the Kapha constitution. Kapha people can tolerate hunger for a long time. The least tolerant is Pitta, and Vata is variable. And then again you have patterns. So ideally speaking, if you want to know your Prakriti, you have to keep a diary. You have to keep a diary for a few months and then see what is the pattern that is emerging. So that is one way you can assess your Prakriti. Because Prakriti at this point of time, we do not have a easy, like if you look at blood groups, for example, I can just take a drop of your blood, put a reagent in that, and then based on the clotting, I can tell you in 1 minute what is your blood group. Prakriti is not something which at this point of time we can identify that way. We have to do a lot of hard work. And what I am beginning to feel is that this is something which Ayurveda could introduce to the public. Let it take 1 year. It's a one-time thing. Once you know your Prakriti and for lifelong, you will be able to handle yourself. So why don't we keep a diary for 1 year? If you are meticulously keeping a diary, looking at these patterns, and then you can identify certain patterns which will more accurately tell you what is your Prakriti. But right now there is a recall bias, or only those things which you are prominently remembering, based on that you will make a judgment. But if you take some data over a long period of time, then you will get a more accurate understanding of what your Prakriti is. Because you may be thinking that I am actually very hunger intolerant, but when you keep a diary, you may be surprised that the actual number of times you tolerated hunger is more than what you thought you were actually doing. So next thing, this is something which I have found more useful. If I have only one question to ask my patient, I have time only to ask one question, then this is the question that I usually ask. How do you tolerate temperature? Now, when you look at temperature, this is a very general statement that some of us are very intolerant to cold, and some are very intolerant to heat, and some are fairly tolerant of both. So this gives us a pattern. So these are the Vata people, these are the Pitta people, and these are the Kapha people. But it's not so simple. See, actually, what I have found when I interacted with a lot of my patients is some people, hot and moist is different from hot and dry. Like, for example, now here in Delhi, it is hot and dry. The temperature is very high, but you still don't feel that heat. If you come to Kerala, where I am coming from, our temperature at this point of time is 31, 32, but it is very intolerable heat. So hot and moist versus hot and dry are different. So for example, a Vata person will be comfortable in a hot and moist environment, whereas he will be less comfortable in a hot and dry environment. A Pitta person will be least tolerant of hot and moist, but will little bit better tolerate hot and dry. So a Kapha person also, cold and dry will be absolutely impossible for a Vata person, because coldness and dryness both are opposite to. So you have to consider all these factors, and then when you look at what is your tolerance, it gives you the first and most important clue about what your Prakriti could be. So you can just do that exercise yourself and make a first understanding of which way your Prakriti is in tendency is. The next thing that what we have seen is the body weight. Puts weight even without much eating. Some people are there. They just cannot lose weight. And then there are people who gain and lose weight easily. Have you not seen these differences, these patterns? Now, what I have to tell you very frankly, Prakriti is still for me a work in progress. We are trying to validate it. So I'm not at this point of time. What I'm telling is based on what is there in the text and my own observations. These patterns are all very, very clearly noticeable. When you see patients coming in and ask them, you can see people are spread out across these patterns. But whether with all these things we can pinpoint a Prakriti very accurately, that is a work that we are all trying to do. The whole Ayurvedic community is working on that. And I want to also tell you that at CSIR, here in Delhi, there is a special unit established. It's called as Ayur Genomics. And some scientists there, along with Ayurveda doctors, are working on creating more, objective biological marker-based protocols for assessment of Prakriti. So hopefully in the next few years, we'll have more objective methods. But these are things which we can, experientially relate. That is the way we understand Prakriti. So Kapha people puts on weight even without much eating, and they will find it very difficult to lose weight. A Pitta person is very fluid. They can lose weight, they can gain weight. So Vata person will find it extremely difficult to put on weight. And then again, you will have combination patterns based on which you can identify them. So now what I find, I've told some characters now. If all your characters fall under one Prakriti, then you are what you call as an extreme Prakriti. So we have three categories of Prakriti: extreme Prakriti, dual Prakriti, and then the balanced. The balanced is almost impossible. Dual and extreme are common. And actually, if you look at it, balanced is extremely rare. Then extreme Prakritis are the next rare, it's comparatively rare. The most common are dual Prakritis. So most of the time, if you look at your own characteristics, we'll all find that we are showing characters of at least two doshas. And that makes it a little bit also challenging for us to manage because the doshas are opposite. And when you are having a dominance of two doshas, it's a little bit difficult to manage yourself. Now, the skin response, you have a tolerant skin, which is kapha. Then there are certain skin, it becomes very dry and white. You can write like on a blackboard on such skin, white lines will come on the skin. So if you just scratch your skin, especially in some, you can see on your feet, on your calf areas, the areas which become very dry, you will be able to create lines, white streaks. So that shows dryness of skin. And sometimes, like the drought, the uh, you can see the mud creating those patterns. So such skin patterns can also be seen in such people. This is a typical expression of Vata Prakriti. And then there are certain other people who, when they get exposed to sun, their skin will become very quickly red. Especially we see this in Europeans and people with more white skin. Today there is a whole science. I think there is a scale for that also, Fitzpatrick scale, where they look at whether, depending on whether your skin will burn or tan when you get exposed to the sun, the skin's patterns are classified. Now we come to more psychological aspects. Now, a Vata person, if you could be a Vata person, or you may not have control over Vata in your system, you will be emotionally very labile. So, if you see something tempting, you will not be able to restrain. This is a nature of Vata. Vata is very lustful. The emotions have to express immediately. So, if you feel like eating today you can see this kind of behavior is happening in all Prakritis because we are not managing our Vata dosha. Vata is when your mind is very agitated and when your body is not having rest, Vata will aggravate. So today's lifestyle is, so you have to rule that out. What I have seen in my practice is today this behavior of Vata emotional imbalance is expressed by all Prakritis because of their lifestyle. So that should be distinguished from their Prakriti or constitution. I hope you are all familiar with that behavior, right? When your life becomes very stressful and then you have this cravings which you cannot kind of control, and then you tend to overeat, then you tend to get into addiction. All this kind of behavior is typical for Vata. So it could be because Vata is out of balance in your system, or it could be because your Prakriti is Vata. If your Prakriti is Vata, it is going to be even more difficult for you to handle it. If your Prakriti is not Vada, you'll be able to. So these are the people who are lustful. What I'm talking about is unable to have sense control. I mean, their life just, they let it go. All kinds of addictions, everything they become prey to. Then sorrow, Vata people express. They have to complain. They are the complaining type. So if they are disturbed, they have to cry, they have to express their problems to every other person in front of them. Whereas Kapha people, they get depressed. They will not speak to anybody. They will not open their mouth. So that is a difference between a Vata response and a Kapha response. When a Kapha person is sad, he withdraws himself. When a Vata person is sad, they will express themselves. And then the idea of fear. You can see this is also true if today, if we are extremely stressed, if your Vata system is very disturbed, then we are more susceptible to fear and we become more anxious, which is also very commonly seen. So that's why I want to say that don't generalize this. In my clinical experience, I have found these three emotions expressing more in all types of prakritis because of our lifestyle, because today's lifestyle aggravates Vata and Pitta. And the second thing is anger response, agitation, the tendency to fight something and protest. This is also an expression of stress. This comes from Pitta. So when Kapha is balanced, so happiness of your mind. So if you are, that's why I told you yesterday the story of a fire fight. I mean, a response to fire situation. A Kapha person doesn't want to be stressed. So if you announce there is fire, the Kapha person would really ask, is there really fire? Should I really get up from my chair? So that is the state of comfort that the Kapha person is able to put himself in. Because in the Kapha state, your metabolism is stabilized. All these, the rush of hormones, all those chemicals are all balanced. So your mind is in a much more stable state to respond to the environment. Then we look at speech patterns. You must have noticed certain people are so talkative that you cannot understand what they are intending to say. They will start with something and then they will jump immediately to something else. Because what Ayurveda says, these are the people who have what you call as thought diarrhea. Thought diarrhea means they have more thoughts than there is actually, this is well studied. I don't remember the numbers. How many thoughts and how many words, there is a ratio. So these are the people whose thoughts outnumber the words they can express. So by the time they express a few ideas in words, more thoughts are coming in their mind. So they want to express that. Finally, the listeners will not understand anything of what they are intending to say. So they become very excited. Another thing is when they speak, they become too excited. So they will be expressing so many emotions and jumping. So it's like a monkey jumping from one branch to the other. And finally, the listener, it's very bad, harsh on the listeners. They will not be able to get a coherent picture. On the other hand, this can be, modified by a lot of training. So I've observed a lot of Vada, they'll need more training. But then the problem is at the slightest provocation, they will go back to the So training can control it to a great extent. So if you are educated, if you undergo good training, a Vata person can also manage better. So they learn. There is a learning curve that I have clearly observed in a lot of people. But if they don't get that, then they are really, mess. Then we have Pitta people are actually great orators because they have this balance of thought and word. All their words are very measured, very powerful, very precise, very systematic. Kapha persons, if you ask them for a big speech, they will stop in 10 minutes and say, that's it. They don't want to speak for long. So, Vata person, you will find very difficult to get him to stop. So, if this can happen to ordinary people also, that if you are very excited about a topic, your Vata will get aggravated and then you will also not stop. Today, you can see this syndrome in all, public speaking places. It's very difficult to get people to stop. So that is because they have at that moment, so this is the difference. You have to distinguish between a temporary Vata aggravation as well as a Vata Prakriti expression. Vata Prakriti expression will be totally incoherent. But even a Pitta person, if he is getting too excited at the time and his Vata is aggravated, what we will see is that he will not be able to stop his speech. The Kapha people will find it very easy. They will give a very short and sweet speech and they will stop because the Kapha always wants to conserve energy. Vata always wants to spend energy. And Pitta is all about managing it. This is the way the body functions. Because what Ayurveda talks through Tridosha theory is just that the body is it's a continuous transformation of matter and energy. On the one hand, you are conserving energy as matter, then you are transforming it, and then you are utilizing it. That's all the Tridosha theory is about. Kapha is conservation, Pitta is transformation, and Vata is utilization. So you can see all these tendencies here. Then intelligence, the way your intelligence works. Actually, the most creative intelligence is Vata, because Vata can think in crooked ways. There is no control for the thought. So Vata people always come with creative, cunning ideas. If they want to plan something really sinister, you can contact a Vata person. They'll give you really wild ideas of how you can do things. But the problem is they will never execute. That's one good thing. If they were also given the power to execute, then it would have been really dangerous. Most of the time is that they will get one idea and before executing it, they will jump to something else. But they're very creative. So, what Ayurveda also tells is that it's good to have a team of Vata, Pitta, Kapha people in a project if you want the project to be successful. So, Vata will bring in creativity, Pitta is analytical. Now, if you have a Pitta person, if a Pitta person gets some good idea from a Vata person, Pitta person will make it into a nice project, break it into steps like today's Chat GPT or AI. You tell something, it will collect all the information, organize it, give it to you in a structured way. This is the Pitta intelligence. Kapha intelligence is synthetic, it is long term. So Kapha type of people are good at execution, long term execution. Not, they may not be as creative. So the Tridoshas are influencing the way we express, and it brings this variety in life. Because the whole idea about life is that we have to create a network and collaboration. And just like through the collaboration of the doshas, the body physiology is maintained. So the fabric of the society, family, everything rests on balance of the doshas. So some of the applications people are exploring today is Prakriti-based counseling, how job counseling, work counseling, family counseling. So if you understand why you have certain tendencies and behaviors, you'll be able to better accept each other and know that it is their tendency, they cannot completely change it. Then it is resource management. So Kapha Vata people, even before their salary comes into their account, they are planning how to spend it. They are dreaming of going to the shop, buying that. They have a big list of items to buy. And in no time, their money is over because they're expenditure oriented. So physical activity, mental activity, everything is expenditure oriented. Very quickly, they get exhausted. A Pitta person is transformation. They are looking at how to manage the money, how to create more outcomes. Whereas a Vata Kapha person is conserving. You can see misers, they just want to sit and count the money. Because Kapha is conservation, it makes you use resources in a very conservative manner. So all these three things you can see eventually balances out each other. And if you have people with all these tendencies, then the organization will be balanced. Like for example, if you make a Vata person a finance manager, the company will go bankrupt in no time. Whereas if you put a Kapha person where actually expenditure has to happen, He will not give any money for anybody. Nothing will work out. So these kind of things help in better man management, human resource management, better management of yourself. So this is the concept of Prakriti. Now you have to add this up with mental Prakriti also. So do you agree that these kind of patterns are seen in people? So that I have also noticed in my practice. But then how accurately these parameters are sufficient to pinpoint a person's Prakriti is a work in progress. Clinically, we have found that with this understanding, I'm able to, in a better way, decide what medicine to give to a patient, what lifestyle to advise to a patient, what type of diet they should take. It becomes more efficient. So, Ayurveda helps us. Today, we know lifestyle is essential, diet is essential, medication, especially. Mind management, all these things, we have so many tools available today, but the problem is that we tend to generalize and everybody goes to the extreme of following certain practices, and this is leading to undesirable consequences. Prakriti enables us to individualize this today. That may be the contribution that Ayurveda can make, bringing that customization, individualization, so each person can choose what is most suitable for that individual person. So Ayurveda, that is why we say in Ayurveda, if you ask whether something is good or bad, the Indian nod is yes. We don't know whether it is yes or no. It is actually that is because it is ingrained in our culture. We do not know how to say in black and white yes or no. We hesitate because for us everything is yes and no. So if you ask whether coffee is good, we will have to say yes and no. Do you know today now one of the big things about coffee, what is said to be beneficial about coffee? Yeah, especially fatty liver. So there was a time when coffee was supposed to cause a lot of diseases. It keeps changing. So tea is also, you say it is good, it is bad. Ayurveda is from the beginning, it has pointed out there is no black and white rule on whether something is good or bad. Something may be good for one constitution, it may be bad for another constitution. May be good in a particular climate, bad in another climate. In one region, it may be good, in another region, it may be bad. So, what Prakriti is a framework which enables us to weigh out the pros and cons and use what is most optimal for a particular individual. So this is the concept of Prakriti. Any questions? Yeah, so you have to add that also to this. I didn't plan to discuss on that because of lack of time, but maybe we'll do it very quickly. The mind, along with the, see, I have come out with a kind of simile. I use it just for understanding and using these concepts in our life. See, the tridoshas is like uh, pertaining to your body, and you can imagine your body to be a car. Okay, in today's, you're sitting inside a car. Now there are three types of cars. Certain cars are like the racing cars. You just press the gas pedal and boom, it will race. So it is very fuel inefficient because it will burn a lot of fuel, but it will have so much speed. Now this is the Vata type. Kapha type strike a balance between power and efficiency. Whereas a Kapha type is the old type of cars, which will give you a lot of mileage, but you have to keep pressing the gas pedal and it will move like at a snail's pace. So three systems are there. When you look at the trigunas, you can look at it as if the controls of your car, like you have ABC, accelerator, brake, and clutch. So accelerator is Rajas, and brake is Tamas, and clutch is Sattva. So using the Sattva Guna, you are regulating the Rajas and Tamas. This is how your life is moving. So You have your mental controls and you have also your physical controls. If you consider the Prakriti from this perspective, it will give you a framework for you to manage your system more efficiently. So, Trigunas are pertaining to your mind. So, although the doshas are moving at a certain rhythm and certain energy, through the mind you can influence them. Like, for example, if you are a Vata person, you're already at a high energy level. And mentally, if you are also Rajasic, then from the mind, what happens is you get an extra push. So, a Rajasic Vata person will behave very differently from a Tamasic Vata person. If a Vata person is mentally Tamasic, it is like the mind is always putting a brake, but the body is trying to move forward. So, such a Vata person will express very differently from a Vata person who is Rajasic. And if you are a Sattvic Vata person, then you will be more balanced. You will be able to have better control over your Vata dosha. Similarly, if you are a Pitta constitution, if you are Rajasic, Tamasic, or Sattvic, your expressions will be very different. A Pitta person who is Rajasic will be extremely explosive, the most difficult person to manage, very violent. Personalities that you may have seen from an Ayurvedic perspective, if you analyze them, they have a Rajasic mental constitution and a Pitta body constitution. Didn't get your question. Yeah. See, there are two things here always. This is called in Ayurveda as Prakriti and Vikriti. Prakriti means your basal tendency, which is only a tendency. So you may be by nature Sattvic, by nature Pitta, but according to circumstances, the other doshas can also dominate at a particular time. Like, for example, I may be a Vata person, but I may have a Kapha increase at a particular period. So this is called Prakriti and Vikriti. Vikriti is temporary. Prakriti is more permanent. So when you are under that's what I was telling you a little bit earlier, that Vata behavior is seen in the general population today because of stress. That is actually a Vikriti. So everybody is behaving in that way. Now, the good news is that while you cannot change your physical Prakriti, you can completely transform your mental Prakriti. Mental Prakriti is pliable, I mean, it is plastic. So, the goal of Ayurveda is manage your body and transform your mind. Because when you see your Kapha Prakriti is a tendency which is there physically, a physical body cannot be changed. Whereas the mind is evolving, it is transforming. So the mind can completely change. This is the message that Ayurveda gives, that you can manage your body. So learn how to manage your body and at the same time liberate your mind. Go to a sattvic stage. And then your physical prakriti also can be utilized to the maximum, because a sattvic mind will express positively in all the three prakritis. So you get the most positive benefits of vata when you are in a sattvic state. You get all the positive benefits of pitta when you are in a sattvic state, and you get all the benefits of kapha when you are in a sattvic state. So this is the whole model that Ayurveda gives, that as a society, we have to understand our differences, physical prakriti, and then collectively try to evolve into a sattvic state so that we create that harmony. When we are all in the sattvic state, there is a connection between all our minds. And we begin to live like one whole organism. This is the idea of wholeness that even the Vedic culture is talking about. Sam gachadvam. Have you heard that mantra? Sam gachadvam, sam vadhadvam, sam vo manamsi janatam. Sam gachadvam. Move together. Sam vadhadvam. Speak together. Sam vo manamsi janatam. May all your minds merge into one. We can live with one consciousness. This is the ideal model of development that Ayurveda is talking about. That we call as collective health. When everybody functions at a sattvic level, there is a deep networking at an internal level. Today we are networking through Wi-Fi, computers, and all these technological things. But internally, we are becoming completely fragmented and separated. That is the irony of today's world. Externally, we have established all this connectivity, but internally, so this is like an internal internet that Ayurveda talks about, elevating your mind to a sattvic level, and then you have all these systems, and there is this connection. And then there will be social harmony, which is one of the signs of health in Ayurveda. I don't, I don't say that. I don't think that is conflict. Actually, if there is an internal harmony, we will be able to better use all this external connectivity also. So modern Ayurveda and ancient science will make this more complete and fulfilled. Yeah. So, true. I mean, here it is also about individual fulfillment. It is also about developing a. See, if you say Ayurveda is giving so much importance to each individual that we say, I told you yesterday, Ayurveda begins by saying that you understand how individual you are. I mean, what more individualism is needed? Ayurveda is talking about you as such a unique individual. Whereas in modern system, you are actually generalizing. You're talking about individual. The whole philosophy is generalized. Everybody is considered as the same. In medicine also it is the same thing. What works for one person should work on everybody. So where is there individualism there? So true individualism is there here, because we see the potential of each person, allowing that person to flower and blossom in their own way. Because if you are a kapha person, allow you to be a kapha person. That is individualism. It is not breaking in. Whereas today we are forcing everyone to behave in a particular pattern. You are actually destroying individualism. So this is true individualism, and this creates a transformation from within, so that all the technology, all the things that we are creating outside can be put to better use and more fulfilling. Okay, so very quickly we have few more topics to cover. I think some of it will spill over to tomorrow. There are ethnic variations, differences. So, what is Jati Prakriti? If you are belonging to a particular population, ethnicity, there are some drawbacks. Ayurveda was the first to point that out. Do you know Indians are more prone to heart disease? One of the reasons is that our coronary arteries are actually much narrower than that of the Europeans. What to do about that? So there is a debate that itself is not a cause. But see, what I have found in the West, they have to eat a lot of fat, cheese, and all those things. So maybe across the centuries, their coronary arteries adapted by becoming broader. In India, we never ate that kind of fat or cheese. So our body never anticipated that we would eat that kind of food. So our cheese is the light paneer. And that also was used only in the north in a colder climate. But now what has happened? Suddenly we have shifted to a Western diet with lot of heavy fats. And then we become, more susceptible to this. So certain ethnic things are there. So many diseases come from the family. So this is what we call as Kula Prakriti. And then this is the Fitzpatrick scale. Different types of skin depending on how we are burning or tanning. So our skins are somewhere here, type 4 and 5. We tan more than burn, and the African skin is very black and it actually tans and never burns. So this is also correlated with doshic response. More burning skin having a more pitta dominance, and more tanning skin having a kapha dominance. So, yeah. So, this is the Bristol stool chart. So, actually, you can look at the doshic configuration here. This is Vata. This is uh, Vata Kapha. This is Kapha Vata. This is Kapha. This is Kapha Pitta. This is Pitta Kapha, and this is Pitta. So the Bristol stool chart, although it doesn't talk about the doshas, if you look at the characteristics, you can see that what they are talking about is the various dosha combinations that you can see. So just by looking at the stool chart, you will be able to identify what dosha is dominating in your body at that particular time. Now, body shapes. Okay, so I think we will stop that here. So this is a this is Prakriti. Got some idea about how it is assessed and what is its utility? If you are a Vata person, then you have to have moderate exercise, not very heavy. If you're a Kapha person, you can have more heavy exercise. So if you are a Pitta person, you must avoid too much of spices. A Kapha person may have to take more spicy food. So in Kerala, I think in many other parts, I've not observed those traditions. In Kerala, when we have a feast, actually we put a plantain leaf and then they serve the dishes. So the first round, they're very stingy. They will take a very small spoon and then put a little. So when we were children, we used to ask, please put again. How can? So they will say in the second round, we will give you. Now, there were so many dishes. So the first round is for you to take a sampling of, what all dishes are there. And you can take a decision what you want more in the next round. So this was the way food was customized for each individual. They make everything and then you can choose, okay, this is too spicy. So second round, I will not take it. So a kapha person may ask for a particular recipe more in the second round. Pitta person will ask something else. So everything gets individualized and customized. So when you understand your prakriti, you can take a lot of decisions, and that we are not going into that because it's beyond the scope of this course. But I just wanted to give you an idea of the utility of prakriti. Now we are coming to the concept of health in Ayurveda. Now this is very important because in Ayurveda, mere absence. Today's biggest problem is unless something really goes bad or wrong, we are not going to give attention. So we have created a society that will do a medical consultation or will take a measure to deal with your health only if something goes really wrong. So even today, doctors, see, when you have a fever or something, they will say, let the disease evolve. When it is possible to clearly diagnose it, we will give treatment. Things are changing now, especially with heart disease, diabetes. There is an emphasis on prevention. But unless and until a clear diagnosis is possible using some biochemical marker, we don't intervene. Or see today diabetes can easily be managed in the pre-diabetic stage, but nobody is interested because it is not creating any symptoms or problems. So Ayurveda is telling us to look at higher levels of health. Don't be satisfied just because you don't have a measurable illness. What are the signs of vitality, of a higher level of functioning? So we are all functioning at lower levels of efficiency. We may not be sick, but we are not at the best of our capacity. So Ayurveda is all about. So we have given a different definition of health, which will be applicable. So if we were to do an assessment of all the people sitting here, obviously none of you have any serious illnesses, but you may not qualify to the definition of health that Ayurveda mentions here. So this is preventive intervention. So you make an assessment and say how, see, fatigue or not, your mind not able to function when you want it to. All these are signs of ill health. They are still not a big disease, but they are preventing you from functioning optimally. Because if you are functioning, because the Ayurvedic idea is, Ayurvedic lifestyle, I will tell you, was to work less and achieve more. Today, we are slogging like donkeys and still not achieving. At least in India, we have 6-day week, sometimes 7-day week. The Westerners are much better. They are able to achieve more within such shorter time. In some places, it's a 4-day week now. 3 days they take a break. In Ayurveda, half a day was for relaxation. Ayurvedic dinacharya was half a day relaxation and only half a day work. Because if you are efficient and healthy, that at a shorter period of time, you can achieve more. And Ayurveda is telling you to look at the overall higher goals of health. So this is a very famous definition of health in Sushruta Samhita. Samadosha samagnischa samadhatu malakriya prasanna atmendriya mana swastha ityabhidhiyate. So this is a very all-round. So you are, first thing is, if you want to assess your health, it should be at the physical level, at the mental level. And we brought those elements of functioning into the definition of health, which will enable you to identify a disease much before it actually manifests. Like, for example, if your digestion is not working properly, you wouldn't think of it today as ill health at all, right? Suppose you are not able to sleep well, we will not today consider it as ill health unless it reaches critical insomnia and you have, you know. So Ayurveda tells us that you have to look at how your body is functioning on a day-to-day basis, and the slightest signs of malfunctioning should be immediately addressed as, imbalance. So there are two things in Ayurveda: imbalance and disease. So catching the imbalance before it turns into disease is the method of health in Ayurveda. So samadosha is that the body is able to balance itself. As I mentioned yesterday, that the body is a self-healing, self-balancing system. We call it this in Ayurveda as the inner doctor. Ayurvedic physicians used to say that we are only assistant. The real physician is inside the body. That is how the idea of Dhanvantari itself came. See, it is not a religious concept. It is actually a medical concept. Why Dhanvantari was there in Ayurveda? If you look at it very deeply, the idea is that, see, when I was a trainee, I went under a traditional physician. And when I was about to do the treatment for my patient, my guru told me, go and touch the feet of the patient. I was completely shocked. I told him, sir, should not the patient touch my feet? I am the doctor here. Why should I touch the feet of my patient? Then my guru told me, see, you are only a assistant here. Who told you are the healer? The healer is inside the patient. So you are not touching the feet of your patient, you are touching the feet of the healer inside. Dhanvantari is inside the patient. So Dhanvantari is also a symbolic name. Dhanvantari is made of three words: Dhanus, Anta, and Ari. Dhanus means bow. So in the Upanishadic tradition, the body is the bow and the breath is the arrow. This is called as Sharam. The breath is called as Sharam. So, sorry. So when you control your breath by practice, by regulating your body, what happens is Ari means enemy. The 6 enemies of your mind, Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mada, Malsarya, are destroyed. And then your mind becomes calm, you get into a stress-free state, and then your body becomes internally balanced. So what my guru taught me was that you have to awaken Dhanvantari in your patient. That is the first step in healing. And it is that Dhanvantari who is going to actually heal that patient. We are only supporting. So Samadosha means it respects the body's ability to heal itself. This is something that Ayurveda can bring today into modern healing. We know a lot of ways in how to interfere and help from the outside, but we do not know how to activate the body's own healing mechanisms. So a wound can heal faster. You can recover faster from an infection. I will show you a case study also where I'm just mentioning that I will show the interview with a neurologist. The last class will be case studies where you will see some actual examples of how this works. A patient had a very severe bed sore. He was dependent, unconscious. And modern medicine tried all the antibiotics. They imported some antibiotics from the US. They tried skin grafting, nothing. You cannot enter the room of that patient, so much of smell and filth. Then the patient was shifted to a nearby. It was no longer possible to keep him in the hospital. It's too expensive. At that time, an Ayurveda physician went and saw that patient and gave some simple medications. Within 1.5 months, the wound healed. There was no antibiotic, nothing from the outside. So we have seen this happen in many chronic infections. If you just support the body's immune system, the healing happens from inside. So that ability of your body, how quickly you are recovering from stress, this is a sign of health. You must be worried. See, one thing which I have been monitoring with my watch now also is that there is something called as your heart rate recovery. See, when you are exerting, when you are doing activity, your heart rate will go high. But then when you rest, it can quickly come back to the resting state. If there is a delay in that heart rate coming back to the resting state, it means your body is not able to balance itself. If you allow that to happen for a long period of time, then it will lead to greater imbalances and disease. So there is a ability for the body. The tridoshas actually represent that elasticity of the body, that ability to stretch and then come back. So, if you are a good athlete, when you are doing intense exercises, your heart rate can really go very high. But at the same time, when you are resting, it will go very low also. You must have heard athletes have heart rates sometimes which are in the 40s and 50s, and it is considered normal. So that flexibility is what we understand as sama dosha. So when the doshas are, the second thing is your body's immune system, your digestive system. That is called samagni. When your body's regulatory mechanisms are stable, what happens is your body is in a completely optimal state to fight anything. So even if an external invader comes, Agni will burn it. Agni is like something which burns and transforms. So even if you take, so even an exaggerated level, Ayurveda says that for a person with a very strong Agni, even poison will not affect, because your body has a mechanism to neutralize it. Of course, deadly poisons nobody can escape. But the thing is, even if you take some bad food or some kind of stress happens, your system, body will be able to overcome and come out of that crisis very easily if your Agni is functioning very properly. The next thing is Samadhatu is metabolism. So metabolism, what Ayurveda says is two steps are there. One is when I eat my food, everything should be digested properly and it should become what you call in Ayurveda as rasadhatu. Rasadhatu is the nutrient fluid coming out of your food. If that transformation is not complete, you will have deficiencies. Because from the food, whatever the raw materials the body requires, you should have the ability to take all of them, separate the waste very clearly. So this is the first thing that Ayurveda gives attention to. And the second thing is this rasadhatu has to transform. It is going to nourish all the dhatus that we talked about yesterday. But the most important thing Ayurveda talks about is that this food should become ojas. What is ojas is not easy to explain, but ojas seems to correspond to a whole complex of neurochemicals that actually even support your mind. We talked yesterday about endocannabinoids, serotonin, oxytocin. So many chemicals are there in the system which actually invigorates your mind. In fact, if you sleep very well, all of these chemicals are produced. I don't know if you know that sleep deprivation, especially people who keep awake at 2, 3 in the morning, they have a higher tendency to develop cancer. Sleep enables you to fight infections better. That is why when you have infection, you want to sleep. Your body feels like sleeping because then body produces a lot of chemicals which enable you to fight infections better. So you are susceptible. Cancer and lack of sleep has a very strong correlation. So tomorrow we will also discuss about how Ayurveda talks about the sleep cycle. So samadhatu means your food is getting transformed to rasadhatu and rasadhatu is getting transformed to ojas. When you have that ojas, your mental capacity is very strong. One of the sign of health is that being happy for no reason. Are you happy? So, yes, but most of the time, we have so many reasons to be unhappy. And usually we are trying to find some reason to be happy also. Because every day we are hunting for something to make us happy. That Ayurveda says, Sukha Samjnagam Arogyam. Arogyam is a state in which you are spontaneously happy. So this is not being measured or sensed by any of the happiness index criteria that we have today. This is a state of this is a very natural state, spontaneous state, which we say through a lifestyle we can achieve. And this will greatly reduce our cravings and needs because today we don't have this healthy state. That is why our needs are getting so much multiplied because we are trying to find some reason to become happy. So, spontaneous happiness. So, that is what we call here as prasanna atmendriya manaha. Prasanna indriyas means, have you heard of this Vedic mantra? Bhadram karne bhishrunuyama deva, bhadram pasye makchabirya chatraha, sthirairangai stuštuvagam sastanobhi, vyasema deva hitam yadayu. So, all your sensory experiences, you perceive it in a very powerful, invigorating way. You see only Mangalam everywhere. You are able to, your whole interaction with the universe itself becomes, inspirational and elevating your consciousness. So this is called Prasanna Indriya, Prasanna Atma. These are the states in which, you are spontaneously. So you feel like celebrating. Every day, every moment becomes a celebration. That is the state of health. So that is why mental health and the definition of health in Ayurveda are very closely related. So in Ayurveda, we say, do you feel compassion? If not, you are unhealthy. Now, today, we are creating a society which has no compassion, no sensitivity, no concern for what is around us. So Ayurveda's Maitri and Karunyam, these are two signs of health. Maitri means feeling that friendliness towards the whole of creation. So this is a kind of definition of health that goes just beyond, physical parameters into something that will create an impact on the way you live your life, on society, on spirituality. And this kind of happiness is also contagious. If one person achieves this, then, it can be spread around each other. So such a person is called as a swastika, who functions optimally at the physical, sensory, mental, spiritual, social, all these levels. So many, many thousands of years ago, before the WHO conceived of this definition, health is not a mere absence of disease or infirmity, but it is a state of mental, social, physical well-being. This was first described by Sushruta. Now, Ayurveda says the body and mind are not different. They are just one continuum. One continuum means one of the big problems that has happened in modern science is what you call as the Cartesian splits. Rene Descartes said, you know, the split between the body and the mind. The mind is different and the body is different. Whereas according to Ayurveda, the mind and body is just one continuum. The mind is also material. It is not spiritual. Consciousness is different and mind is different. Mind is part of Prakriti. So it is a subtle material. That is why Ayurveda says the food that you eat influences your mind because it is material. The physical chemical reactions that happen in your body will influence your mental function. So the story is that if something happens to your body, the mind is also affected. So all diseases according to Ayurveda are psychosomatic. They may originate in the body but will affect the mind. They may originate in the mind but will affect the body. So the connection between the mind and body is like of the ghee and the iron pot. If you pour, I don't know, they used a very strange imagery. Maybe in those days, everybody used to keep ghee in iron pot. Now, if I tell you that example, you may find it very not easily relatable. If you pour hot ghee into a cold iron pot, what will happen? The iron pot will get heat. If you heat the iron pot with ghee inside, the ghee will also get heat. So, in a similar way, anything that happens to the body affects your mind, and anything that affects your mind will also affect the body. Today, this is understood as the PNEI axis. PNEI axis is psycho, neuro, endocrino, immunology. And this PNEI, echoes the Ayurvedic idea of the body-mind interaction. So psycho, neuro, endocrino, immunology means that at the mental level, if something happens, you have an emotion, you have fear. Do you know that fear can completely change the chemistry of your body? One hormone that is generated or secreted more when you have fear, and what is that? Cortisol. Cortisol is a stress hormone. Adrenaline also when you are very excited. But cortisol is something which is very commonly, due to stress, the kind of anxiety, fear, and stress in your life. If it is more intense when you have an energy fight, then adrenaline will also get. And these chemicals continuously being produced in your system can damage your health. So that is why they say when the mind is disturbed, the neurological regulation is disturbed, then the endocrinological regulation is disturbed, and then your immunological regulation is also disturbed. Now, when you say PNEI, it looks very complex and scientific, but if you correlate with Ayurveda, see the P, psych, is mind or manas in Ayurveda, and neurological regulation is Vata, endocrinological regulation is Pitta, and immunological regulation is Kapha. So through the PNEI axis, we are re-expressing the Tridosha theory in a new biochemical language. But the story is the same, that there is a mind-body axis and there is a crosstalk between the body and the mind, which Ayurveda talked poetically as Taptajya Ghadayoriva. So Sukha Samjnakam Arogyam, health is synonymous with happiness, and one who is happy without a reason is healthy. Now Ayurveda talks about two types of treatment also. It's called Laukiki and Naishtiki. So from this framework, all the modern treatments that we are doing would be classified as Laukiki Chikitsa. Laukiki Chikitsa means after treatment, the disease will come back again. It is only a temporary cure. So Ayurveda was one of the earliest systems to discuss this problem also. In the Charaka Samhita, there is a whole discussion. What does the physician really cure? Agnivesha is asking his teacher. Because you are curing the patient and he is coming back with another illness. Then I am curing that and he is coming back with another illness. How many times the person is getting sick, and eventually he is going to get sick and die also. So, what is the use of Ayurveda? What is Ayurveda really treating? This question is asked in the Charaka Samhita. And Atreya gives the response by saying that there are two types of treatment. The purpose of Laukike Chikitsa, because the purpose of health is to elevate your mind to a higher level of consciousness. In that level of functioning, you overcome disease once and forever. You either reach a state where physical disease doesn't affect you anymore, or you don't get physically, which is impossible. So, what Ayurveda tells is that you are able to, this is called coping. Today, this is a very interesting topic in wellness science also. That even a sick person can be well and a healthy person can be unwell. You understand that difference? Even a sick person can be functioning and achieving goals and, live meaningfully, whereas a apparently healthy person can be unwell. So, yeah. So, health in Ayurveda, therefore, excuse me, could you please be quiet? Yeah, the thing is, Ayurveda says that the real definition, that's why I talked yesterday about homeodynamics. The moment you stop adapting and adjusting to that is what is death and disease. As long as you are able to adapt, even in a state of disease or illness, you are still moving towards health. So, health means actually it is a movement. I have an app on my phone which gives me a health score dynamically, because it will look at my HRV, look at my heart rate on that day, how much I exercised, how much I slept, everything. And then it will give me a health score out of 5. So 4 point. What I have found is that this score is so variable. So one day I will achieve 4.3 and I will say, yay. And that day evening it tells me your health score is 3.1 now. So morning it was 4.3 and evening it is 3.1. It's so dynamic, your condition, that health is not a stable state. So you're continuously evolving. What Ayurveda tells us is health is a state of continuous being and becoming. And you are evolving and evolving and evolving. So what matters is how much your body is adapting and evolving. So if it is in that evolving or adapting condition, you can say that that person has achieved the health which is best possible for him. So for another person, it will be different. So you can see certain people survive very debilitating diseases because they have this ability to adapt. So in Ayurveda, when we treat a patient, that is why our treatments are very individualized and customized. What I'm trying to see is what is the maximum survival that that patient can attain given his conditions. And activating that to the maximum is what we call as treatment. It's not that everybody can be restored back to ideal health. That doesn't happen in this world. We are all born with limitations, sometimes inherent limitations. But how to make the best of it? So that is what makes Ayurveda very positive and realistic science, that it tells you many things are not possible. It's not that you take some Ayurvedic medicine and suddenly become a superman. It doesn't happen. But at whatever level you are functioning, how you can elevate yourself to the next higher level of function. As long as that is happening. So in the Atharva Veda, there is a mantra which says, Atharvani Rangirasi, Devi Manushya Jauta, Oshadhaya Prajayande Yada Tvam Prana Jinvasi. What it means is, oh prana. This is what we call in Ayurveda as prana. As long as the prana in your body, the vital energy, is trying to express itself, so long medicines will work. The moment prana gives up, the physician cannot do anything. This is a very fundamental theory in Ayurveda. So that pranic energy is what we don't know how to translate it. There is no ontological category in modern medicine of what we call in Ayurveda as prana. Prana we call as a life force. There is something in your body, like when your wound, when you have a wound, your whole system intelligently works towards healing that wound. Inflammation comes, sloughing happens, granulation tissue forms. After a little while, you can see the wound has closed. Now, an Ayurvedic physician looks at that and marvels, saying, "Oh, Prana, what have you done?" And if you put some medicines, you can facilitate that process. But the moment that pranic energy is not there, the body cannot behave in that way. Whatever medicines you give, so you have conditions like surgery was successful, but the patient died. Or you gave a diuretic, the patient passed urine, but patient died ultimately. So medicines may function, but the prana as a whole has to function. This is a interesting concept about how the body functions in Ayurveda. And all our medicines are focused on enhancing prana, enhancing ojas, enhancing your immune system so that you function at a higher level of. So there are many diseases like cancer, for example. There are some patients where the cancer and the person live together. So you can do something, you can debulk the tumor. It's called debulking, that you remove the tumor, stimulate the immune system. You cannot completely remove the cancer. The cancer goes a little bit dormant and then they live. This is one strategy, because if you are thinking always of curing a patient completely, it may not happen. So this is a framework that Ayurveda gives you. So there is Laukika and Naishtiki. So what Ayurveda tells you is also that it is uh, impossible to completely avoid a disease. You may get cured from one disease and you may find yourself being, uh, afflicted by another disease. You can keep going on, but at eventually when you get old, again some disease will come because the body has to be destroyed. But if you can go to that higher state of Naishtiki treatment, which means that you create the ability to cope with all kind of diseases, then you can live in a more functional and optimal way. This is according to Ayurveda, Naishtiki Chikitsa, which takes you to a higher level of wellness, ability to cope in any situation, and then you live your life more fully. So this definition of health is very interesting in it. So Ayurveda leads to yoga, and yoga leads to moksha. So moksha is kind of spiritual awakening, consciousness. Now today this is an irony that it is yoga that has got promoted first, and now Ayurveda is coming along. So this is like putting the cart before the horse. In fact, according to Ayurveda, you need a preparation to practice yoga. Today, that is a big danger. Without the adequate preparation, you are starting the practice of yoga and it can even damage your body. There is a certain body cleansing, body preparation, flexibility, cleansing of the inner channels, which Ayurveda does for Panchakarma and all those things. After doing that, when you start practicing yoga, you will get better results. In fact, if you, in one of the Ayurvedic texts say that without body cleansing, if you do pranayama, actually your nervous system will get so heated up that you can even have mental and psychological problems. You can even hurt your body by doing certain yoga asanas because your body is not ready for those practices. So traditionally, the whole idea was that you practice Ayurveda first, you tame your mind, you get into a state of preparation for the higher practice of yoga. So Charaka Samhita says that yoga moksha pravartaka. So Ayurveda leads to yoga and yoga takes you to the higher spiritual awakening. So this I already, and the key idea is that health is not a means in itself. Health is a means to something higher. So we call that as the Purusharthas. So why is health important? Because if you don't have health, you cannot pursue the higher goals of life. So we have some higher goals of life. So here Ayurveda is aligned with the IKS philosophy. I hope you have all heard of Purusharthas, Artha and Kama, and then Moksha. So I want to put it very simply. We discussed yesterday that we are all living for happiness, right? And there are two types of happiness: immediate and long term. But generally, we go for immediate happiness. And that immediate happiness or tadattu sukham is called as kama. It is a requirement. If you don't get those kind of sensory pleasures, you will go mentally sick. I just want you to think very carefully. See, when you crave something very, very badly, your mind is very disturbed, right? Always thinking about that, thinking about that. There is a stress. It could be even an ice cream, maybe sometimes. You're so much craving that till you get that, your mind is completely agitated. But the moment you taste that ice cream, everything goes. Your craving is gone. For a little while, there was a pleasure. But after that, if I keep feeding you ice cream, you will also begin to hate ice cream. You don't want that ice cream anymore. If you very carefully look at this whole process, you will find that when did you actually become happy? Just a short moment when there was no thought in your mind. There was no thought in your mind when you were experiencing the ice cream at that climax point. After that, when new thoughts came, your happiness again got destroyed. So, from karma, we understand what is the meaning of moksha. See, moksha is a state of thoughtlessness in your mind, where no thought bubble exists to disturb your mind. So, what our acharyas found is that by repeated exposure to karma, we learn and understand that the pleasure is not in the object, but actually in our mind. So, we need to go through repeated exposures of karma before we are able to understand that true pleasure is actually in our mind and not in the object. And that even without an object, I can silence my mind and I will enjoy that same happiness. Is that clear? Does it make sense? So, life's journey is a pursuit of karma, basically. Till we realize that karma cannot make me happy. This is the journey of life. Till you reach a point where you realize that karma cannot make me happy, and that what through karma, what I am doing is I'm just silencing my mind. So why don't I directly silence my mind? That is moksha. When I am able to achieve that same state of happiness without an external object, I have achieved moksha. Moksha or freedom from the sense objects. Do you have you heard of the Ashwamedha Yaga? Ashwamedha Yaga is when the king sends the horses and any other king takes it, he will fight with that. It is actually a symbolic story. The Ashwa represents your sense organs. So we are doing a Ashwamedha Yaga in our life. I am letting my sense organs free. Whichever object, sense object attracts my sense organ, I will fight against it till I conquer. And after conquering all the sense objects, I become a samrat. I am in complete control of no sense object will again attract my sense organ and I become a king. So this is the journey of life which they explained as the Purusharthas. So what controls? See, we want everybody to say, please enjoy. This is the message of our civilization is enjoy life. Go behind karma. Till Pariksha Karmachitan Logan Brahmano Nirvedamaya. Ours is one great civilization which said, don't hold yourself, explore. Enjoy the world, but understand that this external world cannot give you happiness. You know, get that understanding. We need dharma. So I think I'm like spiritually very dangerous. When I was a young boy, if I wanted to see a movie, I had to actually go to the theater, stand in a queue, rush. And then just when we reach the ticket counter, the tickets are sold out. And I have to go back. Again, come another day. Sometimes 3 days I have to stand in a queue before I am able to get entry inside. So the system is delaying gratification, not denying gratification, but delaying gratification. This has a great spiritual impact on your mind. Today, even food, we never had this luxury of eating food 24 hours in a day. The tea shop would be open only at a small window of time, and you get that. After that, you have to wait for the next day. So you were not denied the pleasure of eating or drinking, but it was delayed. And what happens when it is delayed? When it is delayed, your mind adjusts to the idea that I may or may not get it. I come to the acceptance that, okay, I'm okay even if I don't get it. And then when you get it, you are grateful. But today, intense gratification. This is against the Purushartha. The Purushartha says karma should be achieved only through dharma. Dharma means standing in the queue. Today, no queue. If I want to see a movie, now, immediately, I will open my mobile, I will pay, I will see it. And if I don't get it, I become more and more impatient, more and more disturbed, more and more. And this is addiction. So the Purushartha, health is to achieve Purushartha. Purushartha means enjoy and know that there is something beyond this external enjoyment. There is moksha. You can silence your mind without needing to depend on any of these external factors. And for that, delayed gratification, not denial of gratification, delaying of gratification, which prepares your mind to face both failure and success. And when your mind gets tempered in that way, eventually you reach a state of what Bhagavad Gita calls as samachittatva. This is health according to Ayurveda. Sukha dukhe same kritva, labha labhau jaya jayau. Sukha dukhe same kritva. Failure and success, that was how our old system was. If somebody, today this is also a problem. I mean, interpersonal relationships. In olden days, you had to write an inland letter. It would take 1 week before the other person receives it, and then you have an anticipation. Suppose you are writing a love letter to somebody far away. Weeks and weeks of anticipation. Will I be denied or will I be accepted? By the time the reply comes, you are ready with either acceptance or rejection. Your mind is more balanced. Today, you do a WhatsApp, you want an immediate reply, or you get angry, or you throw acid, or you kill that person. So, this kind of behavior. So, health is for Purusha. That is the Ayurvedic approach. So, I think I will stop here. And we'll continue tomorrow. There is health and disease also. And then the healthy lifestyle, we'll discuss that. Thank you.